Okay, we are live.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Safety and Technology Committee meeting for our new meeting on April 26, 2022. The time is now 6:09 p.m. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let me take a quick look at attendance here. Yep, that's correct. Oh, let me add Bolton to the list. Okay, there we go. And we look good there. Okay. So this is our first meeting since February. Our last meeting was in February. Let me quickly recap those meeting minutes so we can approve them. Let me make sure that my share is on the right screen. Okay, I'm sharing out the February 8th Safety and Technology Committee meeting minutes. The meeting was called to order at 6:01 p.m. In attendance, Carlos Ramirez, Ashley Pineda, Chris Fallon, David Warner, Lisa Raymond. We had an update provided to us by Mr. Ramirez of status of technology at GCSD, along with some commentary on the finalized survey results, which are not going to be available until May. We also had an update on the status of Chromebook replacement devices. And there was a conversation about the copay amount being added to the future version of the parent agreement. We also had a conversation on sending out a communication via Dr. Iverson's weekly update on consequences and replacement costs of devices in the interim, just as an FYI. We also spoke about device status. We had notified the community at that point that there were no students that needed a device at that point in time. And the order of 150 Chromebooks that we had been waiting for months due to supply chain issues have finally arrived, thankfully. And there was an additional order of 50 devices in queue, and we were waiting for that to arrive. And we had an update on intentional damage cases. We saw the pattern is they had been steadily low at that point, which was an improvement from the previous meetings. And then also the TAs had received devices as well. And the aides at that time were in process of receiving devices. We had an update on the conversation about the GCSD email accounts. This is going back to the College Board communications at the high school level. Mr. Ramirez is going to work directly with Mr. Smith to make sure that he was aware that the students should be using their own personal email accounts instead of the GCSD email accounts for communication, so there'll be no problems moving forward. We had a brief conversation on the communication changes for school hours, for foul weather events, or if any kind of issue occurred. We had talked about test runs of the communications. By the time we had the meeting last time in February, the system had already been used 9 times for the high school and 2 times for the private schools. So essentially, that was our test run, and it worked well. So thank you very much for everybody involved to making that happen. We also agreed that moving forward, we were going to try to schedule a test run annually in the September-October timeframe, just so that we would be prepared each year moving forward. We also had an update on the Infinite Campus versus eSchool Plus research feature parity conversation. It had been determined during the last meeting that the eSchool Plus was more cost effective, and we were able to, Mr. Ramirez was able to work diligently and figure out how to get it to give us basically feature parity of what we were looking for in Infinite Campus. And at that point, the principals had class level alerts available in School Messenger that they could leverage due to the increased synchronization between the systems. So we decided that conversation was dead. eSchool Plus is the way we were going to stay, and it is more cost effective. So thank you very much there. The next point was the LTE insufficient communication letter. The superintendent had, Mr. Ramirez had shared or drafted that letter with the superintendent. We also had Mr. Ramirez share the letter with myself, and I did send that to the chair of the CEC, and they were going to look into whether they wanted to pursue that or not. We closed that item out during that meeting. The next conversation point was parent-teacher conference meetings. We talked about this during a few meetings. It was, hey, can we use Zoom as the standardized platform for parents to attend parent-teacher conference meetings? Given the fact that Zoom is a little more ubiquitous and people are more familiar with it, and it's easier when you're on a cell phone, on a bus, or whatever the story may be. Highview at that point was going to be tentatively used as a test bed to see a little bit of experience testing, as well as some additional training would also need to be provided. So we'll talk more about that tonight. Also, middle of year, I've already completed reports were being generated and were being shared with the board and the families at that point in time. And then there was a conversation on updates to the BOE website. We just wanted to confirm what the workflow was, who was in charge. It was clarified during that meeting that the district clerk has the ability and has the access to modify the BOE calendar website and all that related stuff. And all the BOE related updates would go through the district clerk, and anything in terms of district webpage information would go through the GCSD media group in conjunction with the superintendent, Dr. Iverson, managing that process. In terms of realistic time expectations for that work on the BOE side, we agree that that would be a conversation we would have with the district clerk. And then we moved on to the GCSD webpage. We had a conversation on search engine results on the webpage being incomplete or providing no results. And that manifested itself. You would go to the GCSD webpage, you would type in, let's say, calendar, and you wouldn't necessarily get calendar results. So back in August, our DNS provider changed, and there was a little bit of an issue there. So a ticket was opened with Google support at the time to try to correct the issue, to fix the indexing problem. We'll have an update on that tonight. We also had a conversation on searchable personnel directory for each school building. What that is our various school buildings have directories. Some of them say teacher directory, some of them say directory. And when you go to look up a teacher's information, you want to contact them. Depending on the school, the layout is different. The searching functionality is different. So we were inquiring, hey, is there a way to standardize the model that we could use so that as parents move along in the district, they know the exact process and things become easier. So we had identified Lee F. Jackson's directory as being one of the more user-friendly ones. And the request was, hey, can we look into what would it take to standardize that across the district? Mr. Ramirez also had a suggestion during that time of looking into potentially like a webmaster service from BOCES or something to help to keep the site up to date. And he was going to work with Ms. Raymond on evaluating if that was a viable option for us or not. Then we also were considering asking the CEC to gather feedback from the community if there's some additional information that would be helpful in those directory pages. From there on, we went to safety open session items. We had a brief conversation on the lights at the high school when students are walking home and how those work. And we believe 4 of them were out. Ms. Raymond was going to follow with Mr. Falcone, so we'll see if there's an update during this meeting. And then we had a conversation on the assigned seating on the buses. Pre-K through 6th grade at that point in time had been already completed. We were waiting for an update on the middle high school. And at that point in time, the test to state program had just happened the day before. It was the first iteration of it. No one had really shown up at that time, but 2 individuals did show up the day of the meeting. And the effort at that point was continuing. From that point, we went on to some safety closed session items, and the meeting adjourned, I want to say somewhere around 8 p.m., but let me stop sharing and I will give you an exact time. The meeting closed at 8:35 p.m. Those are the meeting minutes from the February 8th meeting of the Safety and Technology Committee. Do I hear a motion to adopt those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And Trustee Pineda, Dr. Macaluso and Dr. Iverson are trying to get in, but they say they don't have a link.
Okay, that was sent out by Joya, but I can shoot it to them real quickly via email. So let me stop.
Great.
Sharing. Hold on one second.
Were you able to add them? I can add them.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and try, Carlos. In the meantime, I'm gonna just shoot them an email just in case.
I'll do right now.
Thank you.
Dr. Iverson was already in there. She got it in her calendar. I just added Dr. Macaluso. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Carlos.
You're welcome.
All right, so let me go back to, I just forwarded that message to as well, so they should be getting it from multiple sources at this point. Let me just add here.
Dr. Macaluso is joining right now. I just admitted.
Perfect, thank you. I just forwarded that message to as well, so they should be getting it from multiple. All right.
Yes.
Good evening, Dr. Macaluso. Okay. Let's give Dr. Iverson a second. Might as well just wait a second so we're on the same page. Ms. Raymond, do you know if she's logging in now or she needs assistance or?
You know what? Let me text her. Go ahead with the meeting and she'll join if she can.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, so Dr. Macaluso, just catching you up. We just adopted the previous meeting minutes.
Trustee Pineda, respectfully, I was actually watching on YouTube. So if you'd like to, we're watching everything that you were doing. So if you'd like to shave yourself some time, I'm actually up to speed. That's why that's why I put my mic off, because I was turning the YouTube off so you didn't get feedback.
Sounds good, thank you. All right, so next agenda item, status of technology at GCSD report. Mr. Ramirez, would you like to give a general update?
So in general, the update is, well, let's start with the status of technology at Greenburgh schools. As you all know, the Department of Technology has been going through some changes, and actually right now we have a full adoption of the MIT service from BOCES, Lower Jackson Regional Information Center, REC. We have technicians on site on a daily basis. We have 2 or 3 technicians assigned to the district depending on the load of work. And we have 1 lead technician that is actually participating in our meeting right now, Victoria Bolt. The district technology department is reduced to just 1 tech from the district, and the others are basically BOCES staff. We have a system in place that is called the help desk, the ServiceNow system. Every request for tech support is channeled through that system. Those are tickets that are assigned on a daily basis, and they are attended in no more than 48 hours time frame. That is the goal. As part of our service contract with Southern Westchester BOCES Lyric. That's what we've been doing since January, when we started getting these changes in the staffing. We learned about a potential data breach that happened with one of the vendors. It's actually a company, the name is Illuminate. We got communications on April 13 confirming that our school district was not subject to, affected by this data breach, but since we had a current contract with them, we were alerted of the potential risk. Right after, on Friday, last week, we received communication, and I spoke with the state education department. The privacy group, actually one of the attorneys reached out to actually confirm that they were talking with the vendor and trying to get all the due diligence aspects of this process, because what the state considers was incorrect is that the vendor never communicated formally to the district. Sure enough, yesterday, Monday, we received a formal letter or notification by the vendor indicating that actually this happened back in January, and the affected software was not any of the software that we use so far. So the investigation continues. I reach out to the vendor, I reach out to our BOSIS service and Lower Hudson Rec to ensure that we exercise due diligence, and if there is anything or there is any potential issue, we follow the steps described in EdLaw 2D, and we properly communicate to the community, the stakeholders, if there is any data breach. Another update is about the managed fiber. We actually have a contract that was subscribed a few years ago by the board with Southern Westchester BOSIS to upgrade all our fiber access between buildings. I'm happy to report that now this has been completed, and we are getting into the last part of that process, replacing our fiber access between buildings to ensure that we have 10 gig connectivity. In the following days, the vendor LightPath, which is also known as Cablevision, will be doing some work on our premises to replace and upgrade wiring fiber optics. In terms of the Chromebooks, we have in full motion our one-to-one program, and we also extended the benefit of having an assigned Chromebook district-owned device to the teachers, TAs, and teaching assistants. So right now, there is no staff member, no student that is not in possession of the district-owned device to actually do instruction remotely or in person. And all these devices are up to speed, and they are updated on a daily basis. Frequently, updates are done and pushed through the console by our tech support. I also wanted to update the committee in regards the Smart Schools Bond, which is another item. We submitted that plan actually about a year ago, and we finally are in the final stage of approval by the Smart Schools Committee at the state level. We received communication that they wanted just some assurances documents to complete the process. These assurance documents are basically a statement of assurance by the district that we are actually following on everything that was described in the project, and that, you know, it fulfilled the needs of the school. Superintendent was subscribing that particular document, and I believe that is all completed, and we are now just waiting for final approval so we can receive the funds and complete the project. Another important update, and I think that probably Dr. Macaluso will want to go in more detail, is
Chris has her hand up.
Yeah, say it again.
I just wanted to go back to the fiber update.
If you have any questions, please.
No, I'm just curious, is that going to cause any outages? Are they going to work around when we need the system to be up and running? Can you just talk about how that needs to be coordinated, if at all?
So in the coordination with Southern Westchester BOSIS and the vendor, we were very explicit that they should not do the work during the instruction time. So everything is done after hours.
Okay, so, but we need to, just because in previous years, there have been times when they've done stuff during hours, even after telling us it was going to be done outside of hours. So I just want to make sure that our after hours is their after hours, that we're talking the same language when we're discussing times.
Very good point. I will ensure that they know our instructional time in every building, and we ensure that there is no interaction with instruction.
And not just instructional time. If the business office, for example, is going to be running reports or something that needs that to be up and running. I don't know, Ms. Raymond, if you run stuff overnight or definitely up until 4 o'clock. So just
to clarify, there are processes that we run like Envision or anything that is a business office or business system. They all run on the cloud, so they won't be affected by interaction with the actual physical replacement of the wire.
Okay.
However, we want to be sure that they don't interrupt at all any operations of the school. So I will ensure that they provide us with enough notice of any work that they will perform, and it doesn't affect our operations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, just looking at the agenda, so we went through the status already. You gave us an update on the high school vestibule, so I made that note lower in the agenda. Going back to the Chromebooks, we did go over this question. So there's the traction on the co-pay amount being added to the next revision of the parent agreement. I know there was some conversations in the past. Dr. Macaluso, you were looking at the verbiage. There was some discussions happening to try to determine if we should add a co-pay amount to the next revision of the parent agreement when they sign for the Chromebook devices to cover non-accidental damage.
So to my knowledge, Mr. Ramirez, I don't think we've ironed that out, right? We haven't settled on that as well as, go ahead.
It's part of the planning for next school year, so the options that we have, we want to be sure that we will provide it for the parents, it was an additional insurance. So in that way, it will be actually not on the district, but the parents could actually purchase that additional protection. And if that happens, it's covered for the insurance for any non-accidental damage. That was the conversation that we had. At this time, BOCES is also, looking for the same type of protection for multiple districts. So it will make it more cost efficient. We're waiting on our account manager probably to give us an update on that. I think I posed the question right before the break. I will check on that again and then update everyone via email.
Sorry, can you just clarify for me? Can you just clarify for me how BOCES is involved in our one-to-one technology use agreement?
So we get services through BOCES. They basically work like a channel for the vendors to provide with service agreements. The advantage of that is that whenever we subscribe to some services or any services through BOCES, we get 8. We get a percentage of that discounted and returned to the district 2 years after. Lisa Raymond can actually go in more detail about how that works. And so that's why we embrace doing most of these through BOCES. The other aspect is that whenever BOCES does that, they do a large contract based on the region. So it's not one district, it's like 63 districts. So the price goes down and is more cost efficient for everyone participating.
So you're not talking about the agreement that the parent and the student signs. You're talking about the contract. Okay.
The cost of the insurance.
Okay.
The actual insurance with the vendor, that part. The agreement is something we do. That's internal and that's approved by the central administration. And if the board wants to review it, definitely.
Right, because I think that's where we were talking about adding in the dollar amount, that the insurance, I think I wrote down that at one point we were talking about $400 is the copay. So I don't know who's responsible for that agreement and it, just the document itself and updating it. So sorry to interrupt, but I think that's actually where you were typing.
Yeah, so Chris, the document itself, we're responsible for, right? We're the ones that generated the contract. But what Mr. Ramirez is saying is clarifying, because I misunderstood the last time, that this would be an additional insurance the parents would have the option to purchase, be put onto the contract for intentional damage that would cover them, right, in the case of damage. But that Southern Westchester BOCES is looking at the same thing, and if they can get us a better deal for the parents, then that's how we would do it. So I just made a note that he'll send us an update via the email, and then we'll take it from there. But yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Ramirez, you provided us the update on the devices already. Are we still seeing low numbers of intentional damage, or is that unchanged?
It reduced substantially. I have actually 2 of my tech team members here, Victoria Bolton and Zachary Baker, and they can confirm that it got reduced substantially, but it's always good to be proactive because it might happen again at the beginning of the school year or when we just start. So having this protection would definitely provide with us some level of comfort for the district that we're not spending extra money and repairs. At one point, Lisa Raymond alerted us that we were going in a high level of expenditures to repair devices because they were broken, intentional. And at this time, it got reduced, but we still need to be proactive and ensure that that is covered. Insurance is the way. we actually look at other districts, what they did, and that's definitely the best alternative because it's low impact on the part of the parents, on the cost of replacing the devices.
Okay, thank you for that update. All right, moving along in the agenda, parent-teacher conference meetings. So this is following up on what we had discussed previously. We were going to do some testing potentially with Highview. Did anything happen there or any updates?
So Highview is using actively Zoom. They got their own accounts and they haven't reported any issues so far. I think that Mr. Mastrangelo probably can give us an update if there is an opportunity for another meeting, and I can invite him so he can tell us his experience. But definitely, as you know, Zoom works seamless. Is very efficient for that. It's very efficient for getting into breakout rooms. So the idea of using that as a vehicle for parent conference is definitely something that we should look into a central administration and maybe standardize it for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Across the board.
All right, moving on to Gcsd Webpage. So we had just talked about it during our previous meeting minutes, that the search engine during the previous meeting was having some issues with incomplete or providing no results. Do we have an update on that?
It's perfectly fine now. It was resolved right there. And the search engine is not only working 100%, but also doesn't have any advertising, which was an issue when we start testing. There were still some Google ads coming in the search. Right now, because we are at tax exempt status, a school district, Google provide with the coding that we needed to prevent those ads to appear whenever we do a search on the website. And the engine is working fine.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
I also wanted to add, and maybe Dr. Magoso can go more in detail, we have a new webmaster. I think the board approved a new person to work as a consultant for the website. I don't remember the name of the person. I think the last name is David. That person is already provided with the access to the website and also an account in the district to properly work and update the website. I also, I don't think that we ever include in our topic for the website the issue with the menus. It was brought to my attention recently by the food services that they couldn't update the menus. They had several issues with that, and we resolved that yesterday. I had a training session with the director of food services, and they own that part of the website now. They have their own updates. So the menus are going to be uploaded every month before the new month, and provide that information for every school. I believe that each school has different set of menus, and they're all being uploaded now automatically. And when you go to the website, there is more than one way to get to the food department, the food services department. In the past, it was only in the menu that is in the middle. Now, if you go to the business office, the business department, there's a link to the food services right there. There's also the link in the main menu, and there's an additional link actually from the department list. So makes it easier for the parents to actually access and see the menus by school.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
Sure.
All right, searchable personnel directory for each school building. So we had just talked about this during the meeting minutes. So we had talked about potentially using LF Jackson's directory model as the standard across the district. Mr. Ramirez, you were just talking about the webmaster search from BOCES, and then you were going to work with Ms. Raymond on evaluating if LF Jackson was a good model to use and if there was a way to standardize that across the board. Is there any update on that?
So I will discuss that with the new person whenever it's possible. Dr. Macaluso provide me the contact information. So as soon as I get an opportunity, I like to hear from the expert. So, what we know is Leah Jackson's structure of the directory was very efficient and it was updated. But remember, if you don't update information, it doesn't matter how good the interface is, it won't work. So I need to be sure that at least somebody at the school is responsible for updating this directory, because The secretary is normally, the secretary to the principals are the person that can actually provide with that information, either to the webmaster or they can be trained also on doing that update. It takes minutes. If you maintain the information, the updates are, basically ongoing. You don't need to do anything special. It's a weekly update or bi-weekly or monthly.
Okay,
So
so
that's something to explore.
that actually answers both of my questions. My first question was, who's responsible? So it sounds like it's typically the school building secretaries in some shape or form. And then how often is this done? I guess that's an open question, but ideally it would be ongoing, right?
Ongoing, yeah. And at least once a month. We don't experience changes in staffing that often, but it could happen. So, doing a monthly update, that's just to check.
All right. The next mention was the CEC to gather feedback. Yep. So that'll be, we'll deal with that. So I can probably put something together and shoot it over to the head of CEC and ask them to just poll their committee. Ask them to look at the Leah Jackson page and poll the committee if they think that there's any additional information that needs to be on that page, or if what's there is sufficient, just so that we can have some standardized model to use. Okay, so let me make a note there.
I'm just going to make a quick little note. You mentioned about the advertising on the searches and how that's been fixed. And I just want to note that when you're outside of the school environment, like on my school account, you're right, there's no ads. But when I'm on my personal account, there's like 1 or 2 little ads. So just if anyone's watching this in the future and wants to dispute that, there's a reason for that. It's within the building, students and staff are not seeing ads on searches, but outside you may see 1 or 2. That's all.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next agenda item. I know we talked about it in the past, the instructional technology plan. I remember I think, Mr. Ramirez, remind me, were we at the tail end of the previous one and we needed to start working on the new one? Was that the case?
That is correct. The updates were done in the instructional technology plan for last year, but the new technology plan is due by June 30th. So right now, what we are getting is alerts from the REC and BOCES that we need to continue that work. So I will revisit the actual plan that we have in the portal and maybe send a copy to everyone so we can get some feedback. In most cases, our plans is just to update the part of the inventory control because we now have a truly one-to-one program. It's all executed and it's ongoing. The major aspects of our goals should go along the lines with the replacement plan because we still have that in place, the 3-year for devices and the 5-year for appliances in the network like servers, other items that are more long lasting because they don't break that often. End user devices is what needs to be addressed every 3 years. And the financing, of course, because we did this one-to-one based on a lease to own program. And now we have the ability to use both these IPAs, which is an installment purchase agreement that resembles a lease, and we get the BOCES aid and everything. So it's very cost efficient for the district. And we can continue with that now that we are fully on the services of BOCES.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, moving along, we have some safety open session items to discuss. Ms. Raymond, the first one is following up on the 4 lights that were out at the high school for pedestrian safety.
Correct. So I spoke with Mike Falcone today and he says that all lights have been changed. They are all operational and he added 2 at the athletic entrance where we widened it. He put 2 more lights there.
That's awesome.
Is the one operational where you have the split down to the kitchen area and then up to the high school?
He says that everything is operational, so I can double check that, but he says it is.
Okay.
All right, Awesome.
And then there was another one. Wasn't there an additional light put on where you split off on the driveway towards the entrance for the gymnasium? I think he added something there as well.
That's the one Ms. Raymond was just referring to, I think.
Correct.
The
Yep.
right of the road.
Mhm.
Oh, so when you said kitchen, okay.
Oh, I'm talking when you go up to the front door of the high school or you go down to the back. The last time I was there a month ago at night, and I drove in that way, that was out, but that was a good 4 weeks
Right,
ago.
but that was an existing light, not a new one.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And I will double check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that said, I think it's safe. We can go ahead and close this one out. So we'll go ahead and close it. Okay. Assign seats on the bus. So we just mentioned pre-K through 6 had already been completed. And for our last meeting, the middle high school is still being worked on. Any updates on that?
Okay, so I spoke with Frank Gunn today, and he said exactly what we're stating here. K through 6 is done, but the middle school, high school didn't see a need to do assigned seating, and they haven't done that. And everything is working fine, so.
Mhm.
Okay. That said, we can go ahead and close this item out as well. All right. Ms. Raymond, would you like to give us an update on the school safety symposium?
Yes, so Mr. Ramirez, Dr. Iverson and I got something this past week that says that our Smart Schools Investment Plan is actually at the committee level, thank goodness. And they're reviewing it. Mr. Ramirez had to ask or answer a couple questions. Nothing major, no big deal. So we answered those, and hopefully we're in the queue to get it done soon.
Thank you. I think I didn't make myself clear. The school safety symposium.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Friday, we sent our SSOs to a seminar, and it was excellent. They came back with a lot of recommendations, a lot of concerns. It was really good. We are going to meet, and we are trying to develop, and I'm sure Trustee Pineda, it's later in your agenda, that what are we going to do about safety? We want to designate one SSO as a director or as a head, and that they can like direct all of our schools and what we are doing. And we are going to take it seriously and try to get this, that it's a well-organized machine kind of thing. But it's operational. And they came back yesterday, and they were very inspired. They were very excited to start new things here at Greenburgh.
Thank you, Ms. Raymond. That's great news to hear. I always, trainings and events is one of those things that it's not often folks come back inspired from them, right? A lot of times we go to them and we learn something new, but it's not necessarily motivational. So that's awesome that they got something.
Correct. Yep.
Very helpful. Thank you. All right. In terms of safety, Mr. Trustee Valen.
I think this is open session. So speaking of school safety, when we onboard new employees, regardless of their position, I do understand there's different training bits that go along with it, but do they get, can you just talk about, do they get like just a written packet of safety procedures in the building where they're assigned, or are they walked through various procedures? Can you just kind of briefly outline?
Depending on what building their SSO will walk them through what the procedures are for that building. It has to get more tightened. I think that we need to have more of a, like an onboard training. It doesn't matter what school you're in. I mean, I could pull somebody from the high school and have to put them at Jackson, and they should be able to follow the same procedures. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. Right now, anybody who is hired, I just have to say, let me think about it. Somebody at Jackson, the second security person at Jackson was just hired. And I'm sure that that SSO brought him through his training of how to administer the building. But we really need to have a packet put together to address everybody.
Right, just because I'm thinking like a teacher that starts mid-year, where, because I know each building in the olden days used to say, okay, here, keep your class list and your walkie and all this here. So these are things you grab and go, or these are the numbers you need to call. I just don't
This
know.
is how the security drills work, right?
Right. If there's
Correct.
like a
Correct.
something that's
We
given.
need to do something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I took a note of that under new business. Dr. Macaluso, do you want to say anything additional about the new webmaster, or are we good with what was said?
Sure. No, just a few points of clarification. Thank you, Trustee Pineda. I was waiting till we got to that new business. So Mr. Ramirez is correct. We did bring on a consultant. I would just kind of caution us into the use of the word webmaster at this point, because right now the contract was only approved for a month.
Mhm.
So right now we are working with this consultant to kind of help us look at some of the back end. Not being a technology specialist, like the coding and the way things are set up, because what we're finding is that there are things that are outdated and things that no longer pertain to the district. For example, maybe references to administrators that, while they are seem to be hidden to the public eye, if you search around, you may still pick them up. So the first initial pass of that consultant is to take a look at some of those things, for an example, and help us understand how we properly orient the website so that those things truly remain kind of in the archive, but not something that someone will pick up, for example, when they think that they're contacting an administrator that's no longer with the district. Some of the other things that that person will be looking at, for example, like I know we had previously talked about the drop down and the menus, and how some of those, when you hit, the tabs, when you hit the tabs, you can see the items that are in that tab in a drop down, but for others, there are not. I believe Board of Education is one of those examples. And so that's another thing the consultant will be looking at, is how are we orienting each of those tabs so that we have uniformity in how those drop downs come. And then as we were speaking about the directory piece as well, I think Mr. Ramirez alluded to it in a little bit more technical term that I'm not exactly familiar with the jargon of that, but how is it that they have kind of cataloged their directory so that it's easier to for the community to navigate. So that's the first initial pass of it. And then kind of just making sure that things, for example, like if we have committees that have PowerPoints or materials that they've shared, that maybe we create spaces on the website where all of those committees can upload their materials. For example, I just did an EWC meeting last week. So a space where we have like a uniform area to share all of those materials. So it's a little bit of kind of like, for the first month that this person will be working with us, it's more kind of like a review of what we currently have, and then how we can put some pieces in place to create efficiencies with that. And then moving forward, if it's something that is of benefit to the district, then we would perhaps have another discussion with that individual, of course, assuming that we have the budget for that, that we would have that person support some of the more heavy liftings with the website, so that the school level personnel can kind of do that maintenance piece, as Mr. Ramirez had mentioned, right? So making sure that we have all those uniform directories up front, and then having the schools do the maintenance piece, like updating names of people who are on staff on a periodic basis. And so we anticipate that if the relationship works out and the services meet our expectations, that we would have that individual assist us with some of the kind of like big ticket structure items of the website, but then we would still maintain that in-house eventually.
Thank you. Very helpful. I took some notes there. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Okay.
Do we want to move to the closed session to discuss a little bit of the security updates?
Oh, wait. Go ahead,
I have other new business. It's not a question for
Go
that.
ahead.
two things. One, I observed, and then I was approached by a parent over the weekend who also observed on a different day, some members of the public bringing their dogs to the Woodlands campus. Dogs were off leash. I was kind of watching them to see, luckily they weren't near students. I don't know if they were picking up their droppings. This other person observed that they weren't picking up their droppings. Why I'm bringing it up here, because of the safety issue. There was a ball game going on, on the other part of the field. There's no policy that I could find on our website. I know there's a municipal law about dogs being off leash. I'm not sure what the district can do. So I'm just kind of raising the issue to see if there's been any history, to see if we should post signs, to see if maybe in closed session we'll discuss placement of cameras. But I just wanted to raise the issue because I don't have a solution, and I hate raising an issue when I don't have a solution immediately. The other thing I wanted to bring up was I want an understanding of I know we replaced the PA system in various buildings, and maybe this is more facilities, but it is also a safety issue when announcements can't really be heard and instructions given to students. So I was informed actually today of certain spots in a building where they really can't hear anything. I don't know how much of this I can discuss here, if it should be facilities, but it's more, I guess I'm seeking information for us to discuss better next time. Sorry I didn't give you more of a heads up, but it was really just a discussion in the last hour or so.
Fine, so.
And that's fine. Excuse me, Trustee Pineda, Trustee Valen, if you could email me what school it was,
Mhm.
and I would definitely, we will look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
All I
perfect.
had was new business.
So, new business also that we have an additional item that we are supporting the administration of the assessments, the COGAT assessments. We've been working with Dr. Macaluso, Lori DeAndrea, and we will continue that work with the principals. We will have a schedule probably established very shortly, probably by the end of this week. Dr. Macaluso can go in more detail. This has been a project that we wanted to be sure that was executed. That means synchronization of rosters for all the students in grades 1 to 5, so they can all be administered the COGAT assessments. That's another item that we can just leave in there in the new business. I also wanted to give an update on the security cameras, but I think that we should do that in the closed session.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and just to confirm, Mr. Ramirez, you said CODA, CODA, did I spell that right?
No, COGAT, COGAT.
G-A-T,
Cognitive assessment.
Yeah.
thank you.
We used to have another Connecticut-based test. I think we replaced it with iReady, didn't we? So you had your two different things for the out program.
Yes, two different.
That is correct, Trustee Warner. Mhm.
Great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that said, we have gone through the safety updates, the open session safety updates. We've gone through the technology updates. We went through the new business section. At this point, we will be moving into closed session after we get a motion. After we go into closed session to talk about safety items, when we come back out, we won't be actually talking about anything. We'll just be wrapping up the meeting. So for anyone that's been with us since 6 p.m., thank you for your time. And we're going to go ahead and end the meeting after we come out of closed session. But again, there will be no further updates at that point. Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss safety items?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.